Now, you just mentioned, what they were able to do with Black Wall Street, and studies are now showing that African Americans have 1.3 trillion dollars of spending power. Where's this money going, and is there a possibility of us having another Black Wall Street again in the future?
Yeah, so first point, black people's spending power is enormous. Okay? It's enormous. What's key to understand about that is black spending power comes from income, not wealth. Those are two different things. So black people's spending power is oftentimes paycheck to paycheck. In fact, just across America, 85% of people live paycheck to paycheck. Black people are more likely to live paycheck to paycheck and honestly in debt, getting payday loans. So when it comes to our spending power, yeah, we might have over $1 trillion in spending power. The problem is we don't have wealth, which means we don't own a lot of stuff, partly because of the Black Wall Streets have been taken from us. So what that means is, second major point is that a dollar in the black community leaves the black community faster than any other community. Now, the perception people have is that, oh, well, if we look at, Latinos and we look at Asians and we look at Jews, well, they much better with money. They keep their money. Well, see, it's a couple things related to that. The first thing, outside of the Jews experiencing the Holocaust, and we could talk about that, which over 5 million Jews, about 5.3 million Jews were killed during the Holocaust during this very short period of time, one of the worst tragedies in human history. They also got reparations from that. Black people never got reparations from slavery, Jim Crow, and the like. So the other thing is that Asian and Latino neighborhoods, really, most of us live in ghettos. Ghettos aren't necessarily about being poor. Ghettos are about people from one racial group living in a concentrated area. So most of us live in ghettos. We just don't consider them ghetto because ghetto is formed the type of terminology and framework that comes from being black and poor. And supposedly you got to live in some high rise in a city to be considered living in a ghetto, and that's just not conceptually true. But I say all that to say, Latinos and Asians who are in these neighborhoods, oftentimes they're not there purposely either. They've been segregated away from white neighborhoods as well. So now all of a sudden, they set up shop and were able to get small businesses that kind of operate through their communities. Every time black people have tried to do that, that's been taken away. But I do think that's changing. So to your question, part of what black people have to realize is the spending power we have and what it would mean for us to take that spending power and hoard our money together in conglomerates. So maybe it's not doing private equity like before a company hits the stock market, but it is pooling money together to say we're going to start up businesses. We're going to buy up the block. Baltimore right now, they are selling these amazing row homes for pennies on the dollar. In Detroit, if you mow the grass 3 times straight, they give it to you for free. I mean, this is what's happening in our communities. And so there are ways for us to get property. And what's key, see, this is key. The assumption with this also is that then white people did this by pulling themselves up from the bootstraps. That's not true. After World War II, well, right before World War II, 1929, the United States experienced the biggest economic collapse in American history. Stock market fell out from under it. We entered the Great Depression. You know what America did? We went to war. Why do we go to war? Because jobs are instantly created when we go to war. Somebody got to make all the tanks and the weapons and all that kind of stuff. So what happened was while men were overseas fighting, because we still had a draft, 8 out of 10 men born during the 1920s were drafted to go to war. What did that mean? While men were at war, who do you think was working in the factories, working in the businesses? Women. What did that mean? That meant during this brief period of time, the husband and the wife were working. Oh, that's not like a novel concept. That's what happens now. Most families need the man and the woman in the house to work right now. That was something that we knew from the 1920s, 30s, and 40s. And then this is the second point. Think about this. We fast forward to the 1950s. What else is going on? Well, the civil rights movement is going on, of course. But we paralleling that with what's happening economically. You had all these men born during the 1920s who were now in their 30s in the 1950s. And you know what they got when they came home from war? They got the GI Bill. Still to this day, one of the largest federally funded government initiatives in American history. Now, white people and black people fought in that war. But when they came back, They fighting side by side, man and man as soldiers. You can watch Tuskegee Airmen and other movies to kind of hear about what's going on. When they came back, though, they got allocated resources differently. White people were able to get grants to go to college. They were able to get grants to send their kids to college. They were able to get grants to put down on homes. And then they were also able to get grants to start up small businesses. That's where small businesses came from in the United States. It wasn't because white people did something different. It was because they paid their dues fighting in the war that came back that was due them. Black people got something different because these policies were mandated federally and implemented locally. So black people didn't get this money. Black people didn't get this money at all. And then when it came to going to college, they couldn't go to the Harvards and the like. W.B. Du Bois, who was the first African-American to get a PhD from Harvard, who happened to get that degree in sociology, by the way. W.B. Du Bois was a sociologist. He had to go to Fisk University in Nashville first to show that he could do that work. So this is the reason why we have this boom of HBCUs. These HBCUs are amazing higher education institutions. Why? Because they weren't even built to stay around that long. They were built to give black veterans returning from World War II a way to get educated. And the fact that they've lasted 100 years, over 100 years on very minimal budgets, I mean, sometimes we got to give ourselves a little bit more credit. Like, that's black excellence in and of itself that we have all these schools. And affirmative action works in reverse ways too. There are white people who go to HBCUs who get scholarships for race. Like, don't sit up here and act like we the only ones getting it. See, that's how the game is rigged on us. Got us thinking that these kind of things are only happening one way. So I say all that to say that if we really want to correct what's happening economically, and we just want to take the power into our own hands, we're not talking about reparations, which we could talk about, is hoarding our money, realizing that we have political power. Black people are one of the most stable voting blocks in American history. We actually vote on par to our percentage of the population and our percentage of different states. So part of what that then means is when we vote on par with our population in the state and we represent, say, like about 40% of Democrats voting in the state, we have political power to change our economic prosperity in the future of what we're trying to do. And in order to do that, we can hoard our money together to do the sort of things that we need to do to start up small businesses, to start investing in the stock market, to put together money in a high interest IRA for our kids to go to college. We can do those kind of things. And there are black people starting to do that. And I think this is black excellence at its finest. Now, I'll say one of the reasons we don't talk about it a lot is because when you look out the human history, whenever black people have talked about it a whole lot, it gets snatched from under us because of the way racism operates in our country. Black Wall Street is an example of that. But I do think that in 2019, 2020, going through the 21st century, things are really shifting. And it gives us the ability to do different things economically that can help set us up for the future. Hey, I'm Dr. Rashawn Ray. Look, if you care about black communities, minority communities, and you're interested in statistics, particularly those that highlight us in a very positive light that's about black excellence, what I need for you to do is share this video. I need for you to like it. I need for you to tag it. And I need for you to continue to embrace and highlight what's happening in our communities.